Hi everyone and welcome to Steve's Kitchen. Today I'm going to be taking Nutella and Pop-Tarts and merging them together to make a Nutella Pop-Tart. Now guys, these are going to taste absolutely marvellous, very simple to make. Let me show you how. And if you're new to the channel, get across and say hello, subscribe to the channel, stay in touch. So let's start off with our sweet Pop-Tart pastry. We've got 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, which I'm just going to sift into a bowl just to get the lumps out and make it fine. Then I've got 1/2 teaspoon of table salt, which just goes on top of that, and we just knock that through into the bowl. Now into the flour I'm going to put 1/2 cup of unsalted butter, and that's about 120 grams. Then I'm just going to use the tips of my finger to rub the flour and the butter together to get a nice fine breadcrumb. Now when you've got your lovely golden buttery breadcrumb like that, we're going to be adding a sweetener. Obviously this is a Pop-Tart recipe, so we've got 1/3 cup of Castor sugar, or fine sugar. And then just make a little hole in there. I'm going to also add for richness 1 egg yolk. And it's at this point we can decide whether the Pop-Tart pastry wants to be a chocolate pastry or whether it wants to be plain. So if you saw my video the other day where I made the giant Pop-Tart, you'll see I used a plain pastry. So I think in this instance we're going to make this a chocolate pastry. I'm going to put 2 large tablespoons of cocoa into the mix. And we're just going to add 1 tablespoon of iced water in the mix as well. When the pastry starts to bind together, we can then start to use our hand and just pull the pastry into a dough. Now that's binding quite nicely, but because I've used the extra dry ingredients of the cocoa, I'm going to add another tablespoon of ice cold water. Now ordinarily a short crust pastry doesn't want to be overworked, but because this is a Pop-Tart pastry and we want it to hold together fairly firmly, we can actually knead this just for a few minutes on the side. And when you've got this lovely Play-Doh consistency, we're going to pop that back in the bowl, cover it over and leave it in the fridge for half an hour just to allow the dough to settle. Now very quickly I'm going to show you the frosting for the top of our Pop-Tarts. I've made royal icing many times on my channel, I don't want to bore you with it, but I've got 1 cup of powdered sugar in here that I've sifted, and now I've kept back the egg white from the earlier egg that we used. That 1 egg white goes into there. And now I'm just going to beat that through until I get a thick cream. Now I've decided to go chocolate all the way with this one, so I'm just going to add 1 teaspoon of cocoa powder into there, just to colour it, more for colouring than flavour. And there you've got a nice light chocolate coloured frosting to go on top of the Pop-Tarts. Now cover this and make it airtight, we don't want it to dry out. Now I'm just going to prepare a lightly floured surface. Now I've got our chilled Pop-Tart pastry here, and I'm just going to square it up a little bit. And then I'm going to roll it out until it's about 1/8 of an inch, 2 or 3 millimeters perhaps. Now when you're happy with the thickness of your pastry, I've made a little card. I've just taken a piece of card and I've cut it 5 inches by 3, which I think is the size of a Pop-Tart. And I'm going to use that, just cut around the edges and get as many tarts as I can out of this piece of pastry. Then gently lift the base of each tart and just pop them on a prepared cookie sheet. Now I've managed to get 5 tops and bottoms for the Pop-Tarts, and at this point the fun begins. We're going to be taking our Nutella, and a teaspoon at a time we just want to pop it in the centre of the Pop-Tart. Now you might be tempted to put more than a teaspoon. Trust me guys, you don't want to overfill the Pop-Tarts. Much as you might like to, they're just going to burst open and spill all over the place. So no more than a teaspoon in each Pop-Tart. And we just want to spread the Nutella out, but leave a good 1/2 inch, centimetre or so around the edge of the Pop-Tart to seal them together. So I'm just adding a little egg wash around the edge of the Pop-Tart base to seal them together. Now you should have your oven on at this time, 140 degrees Celsius, 275 degrees Fahrenheit. We don't want a very hot oven. We're not toasting these at the moment, guys. We're just baking them off. So don't be letting them go on too long. Keep an eye on them. Now very gently I'm going to pop the top onto, match up the top and just pop it on top of the bottom, like so. And at this point I might just use a fork just to push down the edges of my tart. Now that's not the traditional design of the Pop-Tart, but it looks quite effective and it seals the edge of the tart. And it's very important to take the tip of the fork and just puncture some holes in the Pop-Tart to allow the pressure to come out of the centre while they're cooking. So these beautiful Pop-Tarts are ready to go in the oven now. About 20 minutes on 140, 275, but keep an eye on them. We don't want them to go dark brown. We want them to look like uncooked Pop-Tarts when they come out. I'll tell you at the end how long they took. Now there are the Pop-Tarts out of the oven. Now they were about 18 minutes in my oven, and it'll vary on oven to oven, but you can see that they've dried out. Now I need to leave those to completely cool down before I decorate them. Okay, so our Pop-Tarts now have cooled down, they're completely cool, and now we can put our frosting onto the top. I'm just going to put it on with a teaspoon, it doesn't need to be too accurate. Now once your chocolate frosting's on there, and while it's still wet, you might want to add some little chocolate sprinkles, or I'm just going to add some little coloured hundreds of thousands sprinkles on there, because just to add a little colour to all that chocolate. There you have it, guys. I've got a plate full of chocolate Pop-Tarts filled with Nutella. Don't they look good? Now I'm going to give one of these a try. I've got my popper. I'm going to pop a Pop-Tart in the toaster. I'm just going to have one. Well, there she goes. That puts the pop in the Pop-Tart. Well, there you go, guys. I'm going to get that out of there, and just like a real Pop-Tart, it's hot to handle. Now, that even smells like a Pop-Tart. Now, I don't know if any of you guys are like me, but I like my Pop-Tarts really well done. Now, look at that. That looks just delicious. And just like any Pop-Tart, it's too hot to handle. So in the pursuit of food science and at the risk of burning myself, I'm going to give this a try. That's delicious. You've got the Nutella, you've got the Pop-Tart, you've got the frosted top. Guys, subscribe to the channel and stay in touch. I'd like you to write down below which of the Pop-Tarts you prefer. And if you try to make them at all, let us know, and let us know which flavour you went for. Be good, I'll see you in the next video.